Thank you, Emily. Today we will cover the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 tips and tricks, best practices from the Microsoft security community, and Ask the Experts session featuring MVPs Purav, Pierre, Mona, and Joe. The MVP program connects technical community leaders with Microsoft to promote engagement, advocacy, and knowledge sharing on Microsoft products and services. Over the course of a month, 4 of our esteemed Microsoft security MVPs covered specific technical topics from onboarding to fine-tuning Defender for Office 365 via a series of community blog posts and accompanying webinars. Today, you'll meet these 4 MVPs, Purav, Pierre, Mona, and Joe, and we'll hear a high-level overview of each of their topics. After these brief introductions and overviews, the remainder and majority of today's call will give you the opportunity to ask questions of these Defender for Office 365 experts. So without further ado, we'll get started with Purav. I will pass the mic to you. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. So I'm Purav Desai. I'm based in London. I'm a lead M365 incident responder in financial services, and I'm a dual security MVP. For the MDO blog that I authored, I covered 4 topics: blocking malicious file downloads in SharePoint and OneDrive, ensuring organization customization is enabled, using preset security policies for a strong starting point, and lastly, implementing unified RBAC for least privilege access. Now, the way I structured this is in a logical way, because by default, there is a kind of a secure configuration, or shall we say insecure, where you can download files that are detected as malicious in SharePoint and OneDrive. And one thing I've seen is that it's not enough to just remediate that config. What if later someone undoes that config, right? So the video that accompanies the blog will show you how to audit that event and also set up a detection rule. Next, if you have a sort of a dehydrated tenant, like a standard Microsoft tenant, sometimes the customization can be blocked. So the second part of the blog covers how to make sure that that is enabled so you can start configuring policies. And then after that, you can then start creating preset security policies to get started. And then lastly, you want to make sure the RBAC is in place so that the relevant SOC personnel and other admins can, get the relevant access to MDO as needed. And ultimately, the migration and onboarding part for Defender for Office is probably one of the most important, because it will give you a strong foundation to basically dive in further as you mature, and also to represent to leadership and key stakeholders about how it's progressing. I just want to say thanks to the MDO team for this collaboration. This is the first official collaboration I've done with them. I look forward to more, and I'm really excited for everyone's questions shortly as well. With that, I'll say back to you, Paul. On to the next one.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your information, your insight, and happy to have you here with us today. Next up, we will hand the mic virtually over to Pierre.
Hello, everyone. Pierre from Sweden. My focus for this series was about the new kid on the block, the team's protection capabilities. Finally, we have them, right? So I went through from everything from user reporting, teaching end users to, when they see something, they need to say something, right? So report suspicious messages in Teams, because we do see those, right? We need to be able to get that insight from the end users. So educate the users to report those messages. We also went through the think before you click. We went through how SafeLeaks works in Microsoft Teams together with MDO. We moved on to one of the features that I've been missing the most and is most welcome to me, the hunting tables in advanced hunting. So we have 4 new tables available for you to hunt the chat. We then moved on to the respond and contain. So when we are doing hunting, we want to do actions on that, right? So finding risky links, but we need to be able to make action, basically, looking into perhaps a SOAR framework and all of that. And That's all for me. I love this new capabilities, and I know the product team are looking into even more capabilities when it comes to Teams protection. So happy for that. Back to you, Paul.
Very good. Thank you very much, Pierre. And we're happy to have you here as well, going over questions that we're going to get here shortly. Next up, we have Mona. Mona, I will pass the mic to you.
Hi, my name is Mona Gadiri. I'm a 3-time Microsoft MVP in SIEM and XDR and Security Copilot. And most of my time as an MVP has not actually been working on MDO. I've been a security practitioner most of my professional career, and I've had the luxury of working in security operations. And so similar to some of these folks and different from others, I come at MDO from a different vantage point. I look at MDO as an amazing opportunity for us to integrate threat intelligence and participate in the threat intelligence experience, if you will. So the feature that I picked and the thing that I was most excited about, and probably no surprise to those of you who know me, is someone who is very vocal in general. But this is about disputing actually resolutions within the Microsoft MDO experience, right? So just recently, the feature was introduced that you can disagree with a finding. So, you can submit, new emails or things as evidence of, potentially Microsoft missing something or potentially Microsoft marking something as the wrong categorization, right? Which happens all the time, right? And a lot of times, what we're doing right now, because it's a team sport, is trying to figure out how we work better together. And so this is our opportunity as SOC professionals, so all you SOC folks out there, to recognize that we have a really important role to play, not only just in the advanced hunting stuff that Pierre was talking about, but also in making MDO better and making the threat intelligence that helps protect us all better. So in this dispute process, now we can submit for a different ruling, and instead of having to go through convoluted channels or maybe knowing the right people, you can do it right there in the console and get your answer right there in the console. So when you think about time to value, when you think about the speed of security operations and what we really need to survive, right, MDO now allows us to participate in the threat discovery experience more so than ever before. And so, yeah, thank you to the Microsoft product teams for creating this feature and introducing some of this new capabilities, because we're better together and we're better as the sum of all of our parts. And security operations needs everyone, including our email admins. So I'll turn it back over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Mona. Appreciate that. And I appreciate your enthusiasm and energy this morning. Somebody's had her coffee. And we're happy to have you here. Happy that you were able to work with us on this effort. And next up, we have Joe. Joe, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul, and really good to be with everyone. It's just such an honor to be with my esteemed colleagues here. I'm Joe Stalker. I'm based in Southern California. I founded a Microsoft consulting company 10 years ago, and I've been in the Microsoft MVP program for about 6 years now. So in my blog, I wrote about how to fine-tune Defender for Office, fixing the most common gaps and misconfigurations that I've seen. And so I typically do recommend starting with the preset policies, primarily because, as Microsoft finds or creates new settings, they can make sure that you're always set according to the best practices. A lot of my clients just don't have time to stay up to date with the very latest blogs or announcements. And so if that's you, if you're feeling overwhelmed, definitely you want to look at configuring those standard or strict preset policies. I highly recommend them. I used to be of the train of thought that, okay, let's customize everything, right? And that's cool if you're a full-time consultant and you have nothing other to do and focus on than just Microsoft email security. But most of my clients just don't have that time. So definitely go back in and look at those presets. So in the article, I also talk about locking down the basic things. I often come across people that still are forwarding or allowing people to forward their email to external senders. Sometimes it's because they don't understand that system controlled feature and what that means. And so they'll disable that. Maybe they were trying to fix something. And maybe you don't even realize someone in your org maybe turned that back on. So in one of the videos, I talk through, step by step how to address that. We talk about a feature called skip listing. So if you're using another, security email gateway, Oftentimes we see people that have not enabled the enhanced filter for connector feature, and it's super important so that Microsoft sees that intermediary and knows how to interpret the original sending IP. That way, your SPF and DKIM and DMARC can be processed properly. I've also seen instances where the users are allowed to click through a safe link that is actually, determined that there's a malicious message, and people are allowed to click through those. And so we recommend turning that off. Another great example of why the presets are so important. Presets will prevent that from occurring. If you are using custom policies, I do recommend going in and fine-tuning your common attachment filter. Make sure you're not just running the default like 50 attachments that are getting blocked, but you're really staying current and blocking, the most recent, most dangerous attachments. I'm also a big fan of creating custom quarantine policies so that users can request a release. If they see a phishing message that they actually want from their quarantine, they can now click a button, request a release, and that goes to, IT to be able to release that. Another couple features I'm a big fan of that I wrote about in the article, the new bulk mail insight feature, being able to determine, okay, what would happen if we change our bulk insight slider? So there's a report that goes back 60 days and helps you understand what the impact would be to your mail flow if you make that adjustment. Don't forget to review your impersonation protection, your anti-phishing policy settings. Make sure your VIP list has been kept current. You may have had some new ones come in and others go. So always make sure your high value targets are protected from, impersonation there. That's important. Last but not least, there's a feature I like that automatically removes malicious messages. So this is part of the automated remediation feature that's available in your Microsoft E5 or MDO Plan 2 or your Defender Suite license. This is going to group malicious messages together based on a common malicious URL or hash. In the past, that may have been raised, for an admin to maybe consider removal, and it kind of sat in a pending state, kind of waiting for you. Now you can go in and check a couple boxes, and Microsoft will be a little bit more aggressive and remove those items that are kind of right on the middle of, okay, you're not 100% sure this is malicious, someone should review. Okay, now you could say, look, go ahead and remove that right away. I don't have time to get to those. This is a great enhancement, I think, above and beyond ZAP. 0-hour auto protect will already go in and remove messages that are bad, but this is that extra assurance that it's going to remove anything else. So that's what we cover in the fine-tuning blog, and really excited to see the questions that are coming in.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe. Happy to have you here as well. All right, so now we are here. We are at the moment you've all been waiting for, the live question and answer with our Defender for Office 365 community experts. A few notes to keep in mind. This is a public webinar, so we are not going to be addressing any private questions or any roadmap discussion today. Please put your questions into the question and answer chat. If you know the person who your question should be destined to, please mention them in the question. And I will go ahead and read aloud any of the questions that we have which come in. And for any questions that we don't get to, please feel free to take them to the discussion forum at aka.ms/MDO community, but we will be monitoring this space. I do have one question, which we had gotten previously. This one is for Purav. Purav, how do you incorporate Defender for Office 365 onboarding into your broader Microsoft 365 incident response workflows? And what telemetry should be correlated to ensure visibility into email and collaboration related threats?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's a good question. I would say as part of onboarding, if you don't have Defender for Office incorporated, right, you're missing a lot of the email-based threats. because, you know, email is often the initial access vector, right, from an attacker's perspective. Like they would send a phishing email with a link, which either then, you know, has a credential harvest kind of page where they're trying to basically get someone's password or token to then, you know, log in as them and do further damage, or it could be a malicious attachment, right? But if you don't have Defender for Office configured, you're kind of missing that initial access kind of point. So later you could discover, you know, in the midst of a ransomware or a malware attack, you'd be wondering, well, how did this even come into the environment in the first place? And often it could be through a phishing link or, you know, a malware attachment through an email. So if you don't have Defender for Office, you'd miss that. In terms of the telemetry correlation, right? So in that scenario where, let's say you get a Defender for Endpoint or, you know, a third-party EDR alert for malware, and then you realize that that malware can only be hosted on a particular URL. Again, you may be wondering, well, what made this user visit that URL? If you have Defender for Office, going to, you know, what Pierre mentioned earlier about advanced hunting, you can use the email URL info advanced hunting table, you know, populate that URL into there and then see what emails maybe contain that URL if they did. That will then show you that this is you know, how the initial access kind of occurred. So you can link those two together. Another common tactic that can happen is once a user has been compromised, right, their user is then used to then send documents internally to propagate the phishing. So what I mean is, like, user A gets compromised, then user A has a document on their OneDrive with a malicious link that then gets sent to user B, user C, user D, all within the same organization. And user B, C, and D are likely to trust user A because it's in the same organization. Maybe they work together, maybe they're teammates, etc. But again, with Defender for Office, you can easily understand that, hey, this malicious URL is now present in this, you know, user's OneDrive, has been shared through email, because when you share through OneDrive, it will automatically send them an email with that URL. So you can then really kind of understand the true picture about not only where that URL came in, but also how it propagated through your organization. So that's one way that you can correlate the telemetry. But I would say also, to the point, you know, a lot of people that know me know I talk about auditing all the time. You know, use the unified audit log, which is within your Cloud App Events table or Purview Audit, to identify further activities in SharePoint and OneDrive. Because as much as Defender for Office is Office, and yes, it's not just Exchange, it is now Teams, it is a little bit of SharePoint and OneDrive, but to add to the SharePoint and OneDrive correlation and telemetry, you really need to dive into the unified audit log. It will show you where those files are shared and, you know, downloaded and things like that, which can also help. So, you know, to summarize to your question, Paul, right, if you don't have Defender for Office, you're missing the initial access. And once you do have the Defender for Office, you can easily identify where URLs that are malicious could have started to come into your organization. So both those points, you know, go back to my migration and onboarding. If you have Defender for Office configured with the right RBAC and right policies, you can get ahead of the curve should any attacks occur and catch them on the offset.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, sir. We have another one here for Mona. As a person in SOC operations, what do you wish all email admins knew?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think there's kind of a couple of different inflection points, and kind of coming off of what Purav said, I think of the attack chain kind of, I guess, storyline that we try to create as probably the most important thing I would want an email admin to know. And not only, you know, do we get a lot of information on the front end, right, about how the attacker may have compromised things, but a lot of times it's also what Purav was saying, right? It's the exfiltration. It's how they're forwarding things to themselves. It's how they're getting data out, right? And so when you see that MDO actually represents one of the best places in Microsoft to see both the gozingas and the gozalkas of the bad guys, technical terms I'm sure you're all familiar with, right? But these inflection points really are very rare that you see the entirety of it, you know, from any one product, or even get that much of insight from any one product. And it's really about the unification of all of these tools and their configurations with each other that make things powerful, right? One of my favorite examples, you know, kind of being, you know, AI forward, and it was something I posted about recently separately, is this idea of AI runtime protection, right? And if you don't have the right sign-in logs and you don't have the right access, you know, points where you're actually capturing not just the sign-in, but, you know, the MFA token, you know, creation itself, or some of these other details, right? when it comes to Defender for cloud apps and actually wanting to do the runtime protection, right? Not only do you need the intro, piece of this, but you also need the Power Platform part of this, right? Or whatever AI, part of this that you may be monitoring, secondarily, right? So it really is about the unification of all these pieces together. And while it's not an MDO example, it does still represent the same types of things that Purav was just mentioning, right? And recognizing how interconnected your email experience, your email admin experience is to how my life is in the SOC, right? Is more than ever before, because those configurations that Joe was talking about directly impact the alerts that are generated in the tools. It's not so much about the SIM anymore. It's not so much about the detections that I create anymore. It's not as much about me. It's about how these configurations, either at the time of onboarding or at the time of fine tuning, really have a tremendous impact on the SOC's queue. You can overwhelm the SOC with a simple configuration change, and you can also make our lives so much better with a handful of configuration changes. So we're one big family, happy holidays, right? But that's the message I would want to send to all of my email admins out there. We are all connected to each other in a circle. So appreciate you guys.
Fantastic. I got a very much a Hands Across America vibe there.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. You always get all my jokes, Paul. This is why I like doing things with you.
I try. Pierre, why is enabling user reporting in Teams considered a critical step in building security-aware culture? And I'd even take that a bit further, and not just Teams, but just reporting anything suspicious in general.
Exactly. Because we have learned end users or our users to report emails, right? So now we are shifting our communication from email to more Teams collaboration, and it's super important for the SecOps people to know when you think something is fishy that comes in your way. Because I see another question that if we have allowed all domains to contact us, perhaps in Microsoft Teams, that's a solution as well. We can start a communication. Now Microsoft Teams and the MDO team have worked on flagging when you talk to a new external collaborator or external user. So take a look at the messages that you are coming into you, and if it looks suspicious or you don't even talk to that person, you don't know who it is, report that message to the SecOps people. It could be also for internal messages that you can report. If someone is bad to you, you can report that as well, so it goes into the InfoSec people and the SecOps people. So I think it's super important to have that culture, because we want to do right. Because if the SecOps people don't see what's coming in, it's perhaps hard to hunt for those type of signals. Then they need users to help them to fill in that gap.
Very good. Thank you, sir. We have another one. I think this one is going to be good for Joe. A lot of organizations still rely on custom policies instead of the presets. From your experience, why do you recommend starting with standard or strict presets, and what are the biggest risks if you don't?
Yeah, great question. I was one of the early adopters of a tool called Orca, and I wore my actual Orca sweatshirt today because it allowed you to scan your configuration for anything that was missed. And after years of finding clients just really misunderstanding policies or misconfiguring policies, I was really excited when the concept of these presets came out, because now, if you're a new client, you just turn on the presets and you're good to go out of the box. They've got fantastic settings ready to go. So the risk of really a mature organization that already has config not turning on presets is that they may miss a configuration best practice that Microsoft decides to roll into those presets. And so I think there is some risk there. I would say, presets are for you if you do not read the message center updates, if you don't have time to stay current on the configurations, if you're not reviewing those at least twice a year, you probably should really consider turning on those presets. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions related to those, but Paul, I know the product group works really hard on getting the most ideal configurations in those. So I think it'd be a shame if people miss out on turning those on.
No, absolutely. Agreed. All right. So that was those were really most of the pre-recorded questions that we had. We did have a link out there on the blog post that that you had done, Joe. Having gone through the questions that were applicable for today, they're looking at some of the live ones here. The first one I see, and this one, you know what? I'll just read it for the whole group. Why are alerts that are automatically resolved by Defender left with no assignee and explanation in the activity logs? And I saw a follow-up item. Reason closure is shown as undetermined in Sentinel.
So this is more of I think, a Sentinel issue or question where alerts are kind of, getting raised over there. And so the question is in the activity log, why is it showing is like undetermined? Yeah, it's unless any of my colleagues, want to take that.
I have a small thought, right? And I think a lot of this, I can chime in after you, Joe. So feel free to.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So the way that a lot of the I'll call it like the Microsoft system-based automation is done is it isn't as robust from a logging perspective as we would like. So when we see things like automated attack disruption, usually there are at least a little bit sprinkled in in the logs around the fact that it's happening, but that's still somewhat inconsistent. So what I would recommend is like if you have like a Microsoft ticket that you've opened, or if you are consistently seeing a problem around that, like bring that up in the Microsoft CCP channel. It may be something that has to do with your activity logs and the way that they're reporting. It could have something to do with the logs, and how they're being ingested. Or it could actually be something where it is a system level, something that Microsoft has done themselves, and could absolutely be a candidate for more robust logging. And in fact, I've given some similar feedback to the product teams that, especially if it has to do with syncing between the two tools, with the unified SecOps stuff now being in place, my other question would be, are you on the unified SecOps version? And if you haven't kind of moved over to the new way of doing things, move over and see if your problem still occurs. Some of those issues have been resolved in just moving to the new unified experience. I don't know, Joe, if you wanted to add anything else on top of that. Or...
Yeah, that was great. I was just kind of rereading the question a couple times. Why are alerts automatically resolved by Defender? Okay. Yeah, so I've seen cases like where an alert in Sentinel will be automatically resolved. For example, if it's a user reports, a message or phishing, sometimes there's some automation that'll just kind of suppress and close things out. In some cases, it is important to review those and reopen those if a user actually did interact, with something that they had reported as phishing. So you can do that. You can actually create an automation rule that actually kicks off an Azure Logic app that does determine whether or not somebody actually interacted with an attachment or clicked a link, and then you could actually reopen that incident. So you can override some of those suppressions. I think that's actually important in many of the identity kind of alerts as well. So yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of validate the person asking the question that I have seen some of the suppressions where you do have to reverse the decision on that. Yep.
Very good. Thank you both. I see a question here from Leaf outside of wanting to know about tailgate for the pregame, which, hey, you missed out on that. Sorry. A handful of questions here, some of which aren't really Defender for Office 365 related, but I will share this one, particularly for Pierre. How can I protect my Teams tenant from outside malicious/compromised accounts without having to go to a full allow block list? Do you have any thoughts there?
Top of mind, I'm thinking that in Teams Admin Center you can have the selection to allow certain domains that you can talk to, and perhaps users can ask for domains, new domains to the allow list. That's one of the top of mind solutions that I have. I know you need to have an internal process for that to be able to allow new domains, to be able to have collaboration with them or be able to talk to them. But yeah, that's perhaps not so good if you are a larger enterprise, if you don't have that type of process that you can allow or deny block domains automatically. I'm not sure what the other guys think about that process.
Yeah, I don't think that there isn't even a way to bulk add a bunch, unless someone else knows something I don't know. Because I feel like in some ways, from an attacker perspective, you don't want to be able to bulk add a bunch of allowed tenants, right?
No.
But for initial configuration and some of those other, use cases where it's you're setting up a new project every 3 weeks with a new client, right? Then, having to go through an allow process for every single one of them deserves to be a, business process automation that your organization should just consider in general. And I would consider that to be kind of like a good precursor kind of candidate for, top 10 things you should just do anyways, right? Is really configure and control, like who is on your, I guess you could call it third party risk management vendor list, right? And have a third-party risk management, kind of program. And if you don't have something like that, it makes it really hard at a technical level to reinforce the things that need to exist at a governance level. So rather than doing it doing it technical first, do it governance first, right? Drive the third-party risk management program, push the organization to consider incorporating something like a tenant allow list step in the third-party risk management program. And then, step through that process as part of a regular scheduled program of thing you do for, every new vendor, every new client or thing that you do, right? So if you have a master client database, right, one of the steps in your master client database really needs to be, set this up per client or have, client-facing automation that can do this work for you. And it could be Microsoft, it could be Ansible, follow your heart for your automation pleasure. But I do think, from a business process automation perspective, linking it to an actual governance program increases the likelihood that this will be done correctly, rather than, doing it kind of one-off or piecemeal or not having it be, a business process.
Yeah, we also seen, if I should expand this, teams with trial only tenants. That's also one that you can start blocking, because the attackers they sign up for a new Office 365 tenant with trial licenses and then start to do fishy stuff against your company. So look into those settings as well to block that, so they cannot contact you.
Fantastic, thank you. I see another one. What is the best way to interact with a security tech who's working on my submissions instead of communicating through a support tech? I figure that's a good one for you, Mona, maybe about the disagreement workflow.
Can you read that one again? It was one of the published ones already that got an answer, or where was that one?
No answer on it yet. What is the best way to interact with a security tech who is working on my submissions instead of communicating through a support tech? So outside of opening a support ticket, is what I'm picking up here.
Oh man,
with the disagreement workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best thing to do is follow the process, right? I mean, I find, and this is as a someone who has often gone to the product people, directly. I think it's best to always have a ticket, always, follow the process. If there's an opportunity for, or you feel like you need an escalation, right? You can always reach out to any of us, right? Any of the people here on this call. Part of the reason why we're here is for you to know that A, we're, knowledgeable, and B, we're friendly and we want to help you. So if you find yourself in the field struggling, with these types of things, right? Microsoft has some wonderful support agreements. Those of you with MSPs, lean on your MSPs. Those of you who, just are advocates out there in the community, use the CCP program. But there's always someone else out there. Mr. Rogers always said, look for the helpers, right? So I think this is the same, this is the same thing, look for the helpers. And generally, if you're having this problem, there are so many people using MDO that chances are there will be other people talking about it at the very same time. And what I can say is, having dealt with, my fair share of escalations, the product team for MDO has their escalation process more well-defined than probably any other one of the product groups. And they take feedback, they work, really closely with us. And I've had really good, engagements, even bringing them, directly to other clients, and having them, work directly with, some of my clients, in my day job. So, there is no better process than following the process. And, I am one of those IT people that says, please give me your ticket number before opening your mouth. And I would happily put it on a shirt. Or ticket number, please. So, if you guys have more questions about, specifically dispute submission, all of that is contained in the Defender portal. You don't need emails. You don't need to go through that kind of stuff anymore. The idea is that, for smaller things like a dispute, you shouldn't have to go and open a huge ticket, right? But if you are still struggling and there is something, from a product perspective that you feel like isn't being implemented properly, or you feel like there is a bug, right? I really do think this product team, and Urja, shout out to Urja, she really is the, one of the backbones of the team of the people who really are looking to engage with users and have done a fantastic job making sure that, everybody feels like they can contribute.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mona. I think we have in a hybrid platform where emails from the internet pass through Exchange on premises before reaching the Microsoft 365 tenant, we need to configure enhanced filtering on the inbound connector that receives emails from on premises. But do we need to register the public IP address of the edge servers in the IP allow list of the hosted connection filter policy? And thank you. Figure, Joe, that aligns with your blog post.
I haven't had a need to do that, especially if your Exchange hybrid servers are correctly configured with certificates. That should have all been automatically configured with the Exchange hybrid wizard as well. And so I haven't seen a need to add your, external IPs of your Exchange hybrid servers, to any additional IP allows. You'll be good to go. Just make sure that the receive connector is clean and current and healthy, and that you're keeping your SSL certificates, renewed at the proper time.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. We have seen a handful of questions related to utilizing the utilizing presets, which I know that my colleague Malvin has been working on. There is one that was rather interesting that I wanted to share here. If we use Microsoft 365 and Abnormal or a different capes vendor for email security, would using preset policies increase our level of protection?
Oh, 100%. You know, think about abnormal in those vendors that are kind of post protection as a secondary filter, but it's not a replacement for Microsoft Defender for Office being your secure email gateway on the front end. So you absolutely want to have your presets turned on if you're using abnormal as an API secondary filter.
I'd also say, just to add on to that, filtering concept, right? I think the reason why a lot of folks choose to have a post-secondary filtering mechanism is largely for things that are like grayware or unwanted emails, but aren't actually phishing or aren't actually like malicious. And I think one of the things I've noticed from the Microsoft product team's perspective is they are looking to move, more into, preventing unwanted emails as much as, ones that nobody wants because they're actually phishing types of emails. And I think if you have an opportunity to reposition or reconsider, MDO as what role should it be playing, right? It really is an opportunity for us to say, there are really great things about, threat management and threat detection and phishing from a threat perspective. And there are also other emails that I don't want to get. Could my bowling email be a phishing email? Yeah. Do I still want to get it? Yeah. But do I need to have some sort of way to think about that, the stuff that isn't blue and isn't red, that stuff that's purple in the middle. So I would also say, just really reconsider, what are the roles and responsibilities you want those different vendors to be playing, because the direction that MDO is going seems to be more about all-encompassing, not just emails that are malicious, but emails that you don't want, kind of more broadly. So thought I'd add that too.
If I can add as well, we have been doing another public webinar about operationalizing MDO, and I think it's super important to do that. Work with emails coming into your environment, so you can take actions on unwanted emails, right? Because we do see a lot of companies using the default policies in MDO. They are not going into custom or preset configuration. And I think it's bad. Take a look at that and do your POC and pilot for a preset for some happy end users. So yeah.
Very good. Great conversation. Great questions too. We did see one. Are you seeing, and this I think might be for Mona here. Are you seeing attacks to AI agents in Office? What can I do to protect my Copilot users?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics, and we could do a whole nother webinar on this. So just or a TED Talk, or honestly, like any captive audience. But I really think about protecting agents and AI agents being at a couple different levels, right? We have what we call enterprise security, right? Those are going to be things like our big governance programs, and maybe those agents go through a similar third-party risk management program, like we were just talking about, but it's more for your agents themselves. I've been working on some of those things at my day job at Gemini. There's also a component of this that is also around security monitoring, right? Are we actually monitoring the right things within not just the product, or sorry, at the enterprise level within the platform, right? So these are your Power Platform, your Azures, your ServiceNows, your SAPs, right? Those all have their own what we call platform level security. So if your AI agents are being deployed from a specific platform, right, there's going to be a set of components that are super duper relevant at the platform level to configure. And also from a monitoring perspective, we want to monitor those settings. And so this is where we start, getting to the line of, well, what is XDR versus what is MDO versus what is, event level, specific things that may come through. But after the platform level, there's this idea of a product level security, right? Those are the configurations of the products themselves, the access to the products themselves, right? But then within that paradigm, you have also the environment in which you are securing, right? So that may be one instance of Office 365. That might be 20 instances of Office 365, right? Depends on how big or small your organization is. So even also at the environment level, right, there are yet different set of controls or different ways to look at security. So I would consider, each of these 4 layers as a place for you to go back and say, well, how do I protect my users at the right, and go through each of those paradigms. I also did an analysis of kind of the top 16 use cases across OWASP, EU AI Act, some of the NIST stuff that's been published. And there is a pretty decent alignment between about 16 different key use cases, touching everything from, what you would expect from like end user prompt injection all the way through model manipulation, training data, poisoning, right? But all of these concepts, right, give us an amazing opportunity to use the Microsoft infrastructure to determine whether or not those things are actively being monitored, use Microsoft to monitor those things, and then bring together the best of that platform level security, right? And things like DSPM for AI, some of the new agent related governance stuff that's coming in Agent 365, right? Those represent, probably the best places to start. I'll also give a shout out to DSPM for AI and Defender for Cloud Apps as 2 other really key inflection points to control either whether people can use AI in their browsers, whether they can use AI at all, kind of that shadow AI, problem and concept, right? All of these problems, we can use things in our Microsoft toolbox to better identify, protect, defend, and respond, detect and respond, right, to within the ecosystem. But unfortunately, there isn't a silver bullet. There isn't one product. There isn't one thing to do, because the manifestation of AI is one of the unique points in which it's actually the entire creation and design process of user, workflows that actually underpin the security implications at each step. So almost think about it like an episode of the game Chopped, where you get a box of ingredients and you have to make something out of it, right? Every security person is looking at a random box of stuff that some developer agent person said, hey, let's make something out of this. And so all of us have a great opportunity to make something delicious. We also have the opportunity to really screw stuff up in 30 minutes. So this is our call to action, I guess, that if you are looking at AI security or securing AI agents, right, Microsoft is a great place to start. But it also is about assembling your Lego blocks based on your target operating model and your target of evaluation for your compliance stuff. Sorry, that was a long answer. You got me on a good topic that I really enjoyed talking about.
Didn't realize that at all. Didn't realize that at all.
Can you tell I actually really like
tuned.
cybersecurity? It's crazy. I know.
Oh yeah. I mean, I picked this up, and everybody stay tuned for part 2, which will be all about AI featuring Mona.
And all of these other lovely people, they have all been doing their own AI research themselves. They're just quieter than I am. But I've seen them all post and talk about these same things. I didn't even touch on any of the purview stuff. And so, Purav, I did you a disservice just only hitting on the wave tops. But I honestly think that it's one of the great opportunities for the security people to show actually that we all came from different backgrounds. And that background actually tremendously shapes our experience with AI and AI agents. And we need that pretty badly. So purview, Intune, security operations, email security, all of us, we all need each other. So. Absolutely.
All right, this next one, I'm virtually looking over at you, Purav and Joe. If an allow list has to be made in MDO, what are the best places in the Defender XDR portal to make these allow entries? The article Create Safe Sender Lists in Office 365 states the best place is the tenant allow block list, and the second best place are exchange mail flow rules. Aren't exchange mail flow rules for allow listing a big no-no?
Yeah, I would avoid the transport rules if you can. Try to centralize and tenant allow block when possible, but only fall back on ETR when necessary. And I think in general, try to avoid allow listing. Try to work with that sender on their SPF or DKIM DMARC, whatever their issue is. I know that's not always possible or practical, but that's the kind of the main guidance from Microsoft there. But Purav, what do you think?
Yeah, to add to what Joe said, I think, I've used MDO for quite a few years now, and before to do a allow list, you had to raise a support ticket. So I think the product has come a long way where you can now add it within the portal. I would say that when you create it, it does let you specify an expiry time, and I would strongly pay attention to that, right? I think the default is 45 days, but you can also make it up to 90 days and so on. Make sure you're not just saying never expire, because what you don't want is you've allowed something and then later it becomes weaponized, and then those emails can come straight through because they're bypassing all your policies since they've been allow listed. So make sure, I think Joe touched on it earlier, to take inventory of what you have, making sure your VIP accounts and so on are up to date. In the same way, make sure, is this allow listing entry still valid? If it's not, remove it. And on an auditing point, because I can't not stop talking about auditing, when you add an entry to the tenant allow block list, it is audited in the UAL. When it's modified, when it's deleted, you can also audit those events. So you can truly understand the life cycle of that entry. And it's important to think about it in that way. When you create an allow list entry, think of it as an object that you need to manage its life cycle. Is it relevant? When it's not relevant, delete it, and then you'll have the evidence in the logs to prove those as well. And again, to the ETR point about transport rules, yeah, I would very much avoid making allow listing there, because that's more the filtering on the outside, right? But you want to make sure the allow is done on the kind of integrated part, which would be the defender for office. So yeah, definitely don't do allow listing in Exchange Transport. Stick to the tenant allow block list. Make sure that they're relevant, monitor them on an ongoing basis, and check the audit events if needed for validation as well.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Wanted to give a shout out to the product group. They did a recent enhancement I just saw recently where you can now check a box and say this expiration date will be extended based on the last time that this is triggered. I love that feature because in the past, when the expiration date expired, you had to wait till the problem happened, then be reactive again, and that put us in a really tough spot. So really, really thankful for the product group for putting that enhancement in there.
Well, on behalf of the product group, you are welcome. All right, I think we have time for one additional question here, and I think this one is for you, Purav. In a scenario where a phishing email is delivered, clicked by users, and later identified as malicious, how does Microsoft Defender for Office 365 perform post-delivery detection and time-of-click protection, and what limitations should security teams be aware of when relying on automated remediation?
Okay, cool. So that's a really good question. Let's unpack it, right? So time of click protection. So if it's a URL, and you have, for example, safe links configured, right? So you have the right licensing on that user and all those things are in play. Then when the user clicks on that link, it will be evaluated by safe links based on safe link signatures and, detections at that time. If it is deemed malicious, then it will, prevent the user from accessing the page. Of course, there are ways, depending on how you configure your policies for the user to proceed anyway, but you can see from the Defender for Office kind of threat explorer if the user clicked it, right? So time of click protection is very much dependent on your policy configuration and your, license and sort of feature parity there as well. Best case scenario is that the malicious URL is detected by safe links and the user is prevented from clicking through to the site, right? That's ideal best case scenario. In terms of post-delivery detection, so when the user clicks on the link, if it is known to Microsoft Signatures as malicious, you will get a Defender for Office alert. User clicked a malicious link or whatever the exact verbiage is, I can't remember, but something to the words of user clicked a malicious link, user clicked a phishing link, something like that would be an MDO alert, and then you can investigate it and kind of go through that end to end. The other feature that I want to touch on, though, is the sort of post-delivery protection, right? So you mentioned post-delivery detection, which would be the alert, but post-delivery protection is also helpful to mention. One of my earlier MVPs on the call covered ZAP, right? Zero-hour auto-purge. So how ZAP can help you is, let's say the URL is delivered successfully today, and then later on it gets weaponized, tomorrow or day after. Well, ZAP will go in and say, hey, this URL, this email containing this URL was delivered before, right? And now it's going to take a retroactive action to purge it across all those mailboxes. And that does a couple of things, because let's say users that received that email were out of office for the last 2 days, then it's already been purged from their mailboxes before they return to office. So they don't even have a chance to click it, right? So again, to kind of recap, the time of click protection, best case scenario, SafeLinks has those signatures and can prevent the user from proceeding. But if that's missed, then you would have delivery detection post delivery afterwards with the alert. And if you have Zap configured, and again, all the licensing things in place, you would also be able to, retroactively purge those from any mailboxes that may not have seen the email, so they don't even have a chance to click it. And then lastly, in terms of relying on automated remediation, yeah, this is a really good question. And I think this comes with your level of maturity and risk appetite, right? Some companies, when they start out, they want everything to be manual because, they may not trust the automation. But automated remediation can help for sure. For example, if you don't have Zap and you go off for the weekend and let's say you don't have SOC personnel, then Zap would try to purge those emails, but it would fail because it would say Zap has been disabled, right? And I have seen that in past engagements. So you almost need to kind of weigh that up to say, well, maybe we don't want to go full automated, but we at least want Zap to be in place to reduce the blast radius ultimately, right? And you can sort of monitor what Zap did and all those things through submissions and Action Center. So it's worthy to evaluate it on an ongoing basis, see the value you're getting, and then if really undeemed worthy, then you could turn off the automation. But I would say not having Zap turned on is a big mistake, because it can really help you proactively to minimize blast radiuses post detection and post delivery. So yeah, hopefully that helps to those points in the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much. All right, well, I do believe that we are coming up at the very end of our hour here. So I want to bring up the slide with the contact info for all 4 of our MVPs who joined us today: Purav, Pierre, Mona, and Joe. Again, one more time, I want to extend a deeply sincere thank you to all of you for joining. All of the hard work that you've done over the last couple of months to put together the blogs that comprise this series. And quickly, here is a QR code with links to the tips and tricks playlists on YouTube. So feel free to scan that or hit that aka.ms link at the very bottom there. And finally, here are some Defender for Office 365 and Microsoft Security community resources that we've shared in the chat. And with that, I will hand it back over to Renee to close us out.
Great, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you again to Purav, Pierre, Mona, and Joe for being our guests today and for sharing the great information with our community. And again, thank you to Paul for facilitating and to the Q&A team who helped us with answering questions and providing the resourceful information. To all the listeners still on the line, if you're someone who wishes to aid in the protection of the world from cyber threats and desire to have a say in shaping our strategies, blueprints, and recommendations, then we invite you to become part of our security community. Together, we can make a global impact. So join us at aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is also where you'll be notified about the upcoming webinars, events, and other announcements. For those of you who may have additional questions on the topic we just covered or other product-related questions, please feel free to raise them on our Microsoft Tech Community discussion space at aka.ms/MDO community. Thank you all for being part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.